unmute. And hold on. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, I think we should have everybody now. And that one. All right. Let's just hello everybody. Good morning. Welcome to episode 41 of Maker That Money. I am Pooch of Repkord. Welcome if you're in the chat. Give us a high sign. We're trying some new stuff on the YouTube stream here. We got our little bumper thing, but want to make sure audio and video is coming in clear. So give us our thumbs up if we've got it. On the pod today, I'm very, very honored, excited to have our guest with us, Mr. David Tobin of Audiojack, CEO of Audiojack, also executive producer of the 3D Printing Nerd channel. So man of many talents, wears many hats and stuff like that. And we're going to get into it with him in just a moment, talking about finding the right people, finding people that get it, you know, when you need to just take it on and do it yourself. So stay tuned for that. Andrew, as always, king of 3D Gloop. Good morning, my friend. Good to see you.
Good morning. Yes, good to see you. How are you?
I am doing well, and I'm really excited. It's we're rounding out. We're heading into Christmas. We're heading into the holidays. Yep. Got the holiday spirit. Mr. David Tobin.
Week left of 22.
How are you? Are you getting ready? Are you feeling the holiday spirit, my friend?
Yeah, just jamming along here. Yes, John, we are just waking up over here. Actually, I was up really late last night. I cooked a huge Hanukkah dinner for my brother, his family, and all of that, and my dad and everyone last night. So I was up very late last night cleaning. I even sliced my thumb like a champ. Oof. So it's a real meal, which is awesome.
You hate to see
it. And all of that good stuff. So yeah, I am very much ready for the holidays.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Well, listen, for people that are new tuning in here and haven't met you before, why don't you just give everybody a quick feel of who you are, what do you do, what's Audiojack, what's 3D Printing Nerd? But we got newbies here all the time.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So I've been, I guess, two different things. Like I've been running a company I created for a number of years called Audiojack. Audiojack is, if you look it up, you go to audiojack.com. It's in Audiojack, it's the name of the company and the product. I like to be confusing, you know. I just wanted to go for the next brand right off the bat.
Sure.
Hey, Phil. Who's that in there? Oh, hey. I can see the chat now. Hey, how are you? And an Audiojack itself is an audio-based movie. So you listen to it, and there's no words, there's no video, and there's no music. It's all sound design. It's hundreds and hundreds of sounds that are edited together to tell a story for your imagination. So you listen to it, and you close your eyes, and you might hear the wind in trees blowing and, you know, some feet walking, and the door opens. Well, your imagination turns on, and you create a narrative based on what you're hearing. But we never tell you what the story is, so there's never a wrong answer. App with tons of different categories and activities. It's used in education programs around the world because, you know, if I break this water glass, it doesn't go le break in France. It's
sure.
So we created a universal platform for people to engage. The federal program for the blind in the U.S. uses it. Tons of programs. We work with science programs, World Wildlife Fund. We work in China. We work with programs all over the world. And then,
I was gonna say I've used it. It's awesome. You guys need to check it out. It's audiojack.com, right? And there's I believe there's some free ones people can check out and get a sense of it. I remember doing like a sports themed one, like a baseball one or something like that at one point.
Ooh, that's cool.
And then you've had some partnerships with like Bose where there was some integration with maybe some hardware and stuff as well. Am I right on that?
With Bose. So I did a talk at and I am feeling it's cold in here. I'm putting my stocking hat back. I'm a California boy. I'm up here and it's like a high of 40, so that's cold.
We're -5 right now.
Yeah, we get the superstorm.
I'm originally from Chicago, and I don't miss the snow, dude. Like
I've miss it.
Traded my goose down for board shorts.
Nice.
That's a deal. That's a deal.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
You know what's up, Beach. But yeah, we so I did a talk about the importance of the imagination at South by Southwest and did a whole thing. And after it was done, the lead development team from Bose was there, and they're like, "Look, we want to work with you. We have a new innovation." They brought me over, and they showed me, and this was the beginning of their AR elements in their headphones. And so I worked with Bose for years, creating audio jacks when you use their AR software, and there's certain ones in here that as you're listening to audio jack, and all of a sudden maybe you hear like an explosion over here. And if you turned your head, the story would then shift. And so it became a choose your own adventure based on different audio that you would hear in
That is
different
so
parts.
cool.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so instead of having one story, there were 25 stories within a single audio jack.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff. So we did a whole launch with Bose, and I worked with them for a number of years and stuff like that. But you
That's
know,
incredible.
when the pandemic hit, we found a whole new user base of people who, you know, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to bed,
Yeah.
people were playing an audio
Guilty.
jack. Because the thing about an audio jack is that we've done a lot of work on the science of this as well too, just to be very generic. I know we got to get to some other stuff here, but we work with UC Riverside's brain program. We work with other medical programs to show how the imagination allows us to deal with stress throughout the day, because we're in the always on generation now.
Right.
And you, instead of having time to like daydream and let your mind wander, we pull out this thing and we start stagnating that process. And when you daydream, you get a light form of REM activity in your mind, as opposed to like sleeping, but you still get a light form. And what that does is that refreshes your brain throughout the day. And when you don't do that, you stagnate the process, and it all comes back at night when you're laying down and you get insomnia, anxiety, and all of that. So you listen to the audio jack and your mind focuses on the story, and the fatigue of your body takes over and you fall asleep with no drugs.
You know, that's really interesting. And honestly, like, I think a lot of people could benefit from
Yeah.
like
Oh, yeah.
unplugging and trying to focus. You know, zombie hedgehog in the chat saying like they can't pay attention to movies, and so that sounds really interesting. And I think it's good. We could definitely use some different sensory stimulation given how visual we are in this day and age. So
You have
Good
the
on you,
best
man.
movie playing in your head all the time. You just have to relax and let it happen.
you know, that's a great way to put it. And I got to tell you, man, you have such a fantastically refined, perfect elevator pitch for like what that is. And
Yep.
I'm serious about that. I think that's really important in business to tell the story, whether you know of your own business in a way that people can really relate to. And that takes some time to perfect, obviously, and think about like, okay, what's gonna really like hook people in? Because in a way, and you do this in a lot of your other gig now as a producer too. So it's all about finding those sexy hooks that really engage people. And we're gonna, man, we could talk forever on a multitude of different topics and stuff. So maybe instead of digressing into that, let's do a little housekeeping. Let's get those calls
wins.
to actions. We're gonna talk about our
that's for
wins.
another show. We'll talk about the mind and getting your head right for another show.
So much great stuff there, though, man. I'm excited. I'm excited for that. Okay, so as always, welcome to Maker That Money, the podcast where we talk about turning your hobby into your jobby. So we are super excited about entrepreneurialism. We also are each makers, and we make a multitude of different things, whether it's audio experiences or adhesives for your 3D printing or storage solutions and furniture for your 3D printing and whatnot. That we all kind of have different expertise, and we welcome you those of you that are joining us on YouTube. We try to record here every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific. If you're listening back and you want to join us on the chat, feed us questions and comments, we encourage you to do so. You can find us on Repkord, youtube.com/Repkord. We also have we're a call-in show, believe it or not. So there's a link right above my head for those that are brave enough to call in. Maker That Money hotline is the MTM hotline is open and waiting if you want to chat with us that way. That's another way to engage. But greetings. I've seen a lot of familiar faces in the chat. I'm seeing some new people, and I hope you guys are all gearing up for some good R&R, taking some time for yourselves, spending some time with your families in this holidays and stuff like that. But we're happy to have you with us, despite the fact that it is holiday season right now. Let's talk about some wins, guys. We like to start the show being positive and optimistic, and we like to share things ourselves that have worked for us in this past week. And I encourage you to do the same in the chat. Share your wins with us. David, we're going to put you on the spot this morning. You got to pick one. You have to pick just one now. Because I know you got a lot of wins, man. I know you're tacking up the W's.
It's all I do is win, baby.
It's just wins.
Just win, baby, win.
What's a win for the week?
Let's go. I'm a Bears fan, but Raider Nation, man, for that. I would say the biggest win we've had, and I've had recently, has to come from last week, from the charity live stream the 3D Printing Nerd did that we put together. Like that's
incredible.
Yeah, Joel and I had a call about like setting. He's like, I'm going to set our goal at $10,000. I'm like, that's a lot. And he goes, I know, but I think like we're going to be on for a while. I think it'll come through. And I go, okay, let's give it a shot.
What a trip!
$45,000.
4.5x. Not only that, you hit the 10 before you guys like could even get through the technical issues at the beginning of the stream. I was with you for most of it, and it was just such an enjoyable. I mean, obviously, like Joel is just such a energetic, positive person. And then you guys had Bender doing the telethon piece. As well, and it was just such a great thing. If you guys are not familiar with what I'm talking about, on the 3D Printing Nerd channel, which David is the executive producer for, they had like seriously the best holiday giveaway stream. They gave away over $70,000 worth of stuff. Am I right, David? Is that right?
Over 75,000. Actually, it's technically more because during the stream, I mean,
that's right.
My phone.
Yeah, there was like printers and everything being thrown in.
Everyone was trying to hit up. Oh, I want to do this now. I want to do this now. And we're like, we could fit a couple extras in and stuff like that. But like, next year is going to be crazy.
Oh, I can only imagine. So so not only did you guys get a ton of awesome sponsors donating great stuff, like giveaways, just nonstop. You guys went for 6 hours, right?
Yeah, Joel is a beast.
I can't like just the amount of endurance that takes to do and then not lose. And I talked to him the next day, and he was like, "Yeah, I actually feel remarkably okay." So the guy's got some endurance and is well trained for these types of things.
We've got in a really good groove now. I mean, Joel and I have been, friends for almost 20 years, and so when things happen, it's like, okay, there's a solution. Let's just figure it out, not freak out.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so that's my win. That's my win, was us being able to, give that amount of money to the Children's Hospital.
That's right. Seattle Children's Hospital was the beneficiary.
Uncompensated care fund, which is for people who can't afford care. There is a fund set up to make sure that you don't have to stress out about certain things, and this helps supply that. And the total raised for the event was $475,000.
Wow. Almost $500,000, guys. I mean, that
we brought in 10% of the total.
But
that's incredible.
Incredible. And what's interesting about that, and I think it's such a neat story when you pair like kind of traditional terrestrial radio with this new, stream and stuff. And I'm curious what Bender and that what his feels are on this, because I know that it brought in an audience that they just don't necessarily get to see a lot of time. Like there's a much bigger international crowd obviously associated with Joel and 3D Printing Nerd, and that's just like one kind of niche thing. So you figure you get a couple of these things, you have this like an amazing ability to like get some phenomenal outreach.
Well, that's a big part of it, and that's the reason why I wanted to bring in the guests. Why we had people popping in, why we had, Joe Krusha pop in. We had, by the way, which I put him on the chat earlier because he was going to come later and he was testing it. And I'm like, I'm putting you on now. So,
surprise.
Yeah, he was, I think he was getting ready to go to bed.
Yeah.
But that's really it. Like I listen to a lot of rock stations all over the world because I love listening to local radio stations. There's a big rock station in Wisconsin, JJO, and they did this huge fundraiser for military vets. And they had Metallica giving away a guitar, Hailstorm, and all these people or whatever. That radio station's total fund raised, their total raise was $40,000.
And you guys did better than that with just the stream. Yeah.
With that, and then none of the celebrity stuff. And it's really interesting to think about that if you take this, online element and create it correctly, you can really amplify these efforts. And so I wondered, like, wow, what else can we do?
Yeah. All right, Andrew. Awesome. Andrew, you're up. What's your win, my friend?
We've been working on some new materials. So making progress on that sort of stuff.
Some new science sauce in the works?
Yeah, some new science sauce, but I think more generically, let's call them materials.
Ooh, okay, materials.
Yeah. So overall good stuff. And I guess, just making it through another week, right?
You know what? Sometimes that's a win in of itself, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to share mine. We do a ton of laser cutting, as many of you may already know, for a lot of the kits that we put together, and it's one of the coolest and most frustrating tools there really is out there, and it's an interesting tool set to leverage because like I don't feel like I've seen a lot of good example of large scale industrial, and I know there are industrial lasers out there, and I know that there, but like a lot of that's in like kind of the metalworking and fabrication space and stuff, and so I don't feel like I have a lot of good resources for like understanding how to scale and do stuff efficiently. So we have to kind of write our own book and learn as we go, which is honestly part of the fun of it. I enjoy that. But we had a big win this week where we kind of came up with a new templating system and alignment system so that we could get a perfect 0-0 alignment every time. And as silly as that probably sounds to you guys, one of the failings of the motion systems on these lasers is that it uses, and it could just be these, the grade of laser I'm using. I mean, I would call it, a semi-industrial, these are like $15,000 to $20,000 machines. So they're not cheap, but they're still using a lot of the same off-the-shelf stuff that we see in 3D printing. For example, the end stops on these motion systems for the lasers are using just mechanical rocker switches, the same as we'd seen on our, CR10s and whatnot. And one of them uses a inductive, as well. So they use the same kind of tech.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that is in this application with the speeds that it's moving, it's actually imperfect in its homing process, where it can be off by like 1 millimeter to 2 millimeters sometimes. Maybe not quite 2, but mil to 1.5 mil. In 3D printing, that doesn't really matter because you're very rarely using the entire bed, and you probably wouldn't notice if you're not homing in the exact same spot every time. You don't really need that millimeter precision. When you're laser cutting, you do. Like the kerf of a laser is like less than 1/10 of a millimeter if you're focused. I mean, it varies depending on stuff. But for example, if I want to take a part of known dimension and cut an exact hole in it in a specific spot, it's absolutely critical that I know where my 0-0 is. And and so these systems like haven't been in place. And at some point, my goal for 2023 is to do a little bit more content, maybe some shorts around some of these little tips and tricks that we've done ourselves that we can share. And I'll do some video of it to kind of explain what we did. But anyway, it was a big win for us because now it allows me to, like, if we had a failed cut, I can take the part, I can put it back in, and I have a good template for like dead nuts getting that whole recut that might not have cut through completely or something like that. Yeah. So I'm gonna take that as my W this week. Okay.
Nice.
Awesome.
Retired.
Bravo to your win.
Nice.
Thank you for the.
Salute you both.
Thank you. Let me share a couple wins from the chat real quick because we're an interactive show here. Let's see. Mayhall, good to see you, my friend. He says, win, been experimenting with CF nylon and PLA. So I'm assuming he means
Nice.
CFPLA as well. Finally launching some new products that take advantage of that. That's fantastic, man. First of all, anything nylon is never easy to necessarily work with. Nylon is a kind of a finicky material. You got to keep it dry. But it's got some really awesome mechanical properties and strengths and stuff. And if you can do it well, and especially when you get that finish, that surface fit, that layer, that aesthetic of that carbon fiber and the way that hides the layer lines and stuff, you can just get some really cool top tier looking stuff out of it. David, have you played with any of the carbon fiber stuff yet?
Yeah. Well, we've in the studio, I mean, we worked with, like, I've done, CFPLA and stuff like that, and other elements from that. The carbon from bamboo has, a carbon has a nice one I used with that. But we've worked with real,
you guys have worked with
like
some
with the March Verge.
Oh yeah,
with Impossible Objects, working with that company with Thor sent over. Like if you look, there's an episode where we tested. We've done this many times, testing the weight of the full Joel.
Yeah.
And we had a bunch of carabiners. I think they were carabiners or they're frogs. The locks for like climbing.
Yeah.
We those out a bunch of different materials, and then we used some from the actual, fiber from Impossible Objects. They sent us some, and it was really cool to be able to kind of get into that. And then we have some projects coming up in the new year that are going to involve that even more, because I think it's becoming more prevalent now.
Yeah. And you guys are lucky because, like you said, you get some really, really high-end machines. So, like those Mark IV, like that's legit carbon fiber layup, like mechanical strength stuff. I think a lot of the more consumer grade CF, it does add some rigidity and some stiffness. But I think when we traditionally think of carbon fiber, we're thinking about carbon fiber layups and strength to weight. And in the context of consumer grade CF stuff, when you're talking about PLA and PETG and CF nylons and stuff like that, a lot of it can be a little bit more of an aesthetic piece as well too. So it's really interesting stuff, and it's always good to see people playing with new materials and finding good product out of it. So good win there. One more win from the chat, Alex Gibson. He's been in his office now, new office now, 9 months. Congrats on that. Really starting to find some weekly wins and compounding, and things are getting tidier and more efficient every month. That's good.
Nice.
Organization
That's a
is
good
so
win.
key. So key, man. That's great, Alex. I'm happy for you there. Thanks for sharing your wins, guys. That's good. All right, you guys ready? We need to get into the meat and potatoes. And David, I'm hoping maybe you can give a little background of like how we came to this topic.
Yeah.
Because you saw the show last week and you called me up and said, "Hey, what if we talk about this? I know you're really excited about this. Give us like what are we going to talk about today?"
Sure. So Joel and I were talking. So, like, for those of you who don't know, I'm the executive producer of the show 3D Printing Nerd that Joel created. A little background: Joel Telling and I have been friends for, I think it's 18 years now. I keep saying 17. So
That's
it's
awesome.
And hey, good morning, everyone that is joining the chat. Nice to see your beautiful faces.
Courtney's here.
In my head, I see Courtney. What up? And everyone else I missed. Hey, Grant.
We can start now.
And all that. And so I've been a TV producer for over 20 years. Worked on everything from like Dance with the Stars, Biggest Loser, to Ice Loves Coco, to Pet Finder, to all sorts of obscure shows and things like that. And when Joel got into 3D printing, I think it's like 7 years ago or something like that, his family got him a 3D printer for Christmas, and he started making, creating the channel. Little tips and stuff here on occasion. But then I told him when he was really getting into it, if you ever want to take this seriously, let me know. I got your back.
All right.
And sure enough, I'm producing a show for Netflix. It's called Next in Fashion. Season 2 is about to come out. And I get a call from him, and he's like, "Yo, I quit my job at Adobe." And I'm like, "Okay,
we're doing this."
So, and so that was like 3.5 years ago, and I jumped on board here. And so the other day, Joel and I were talking about some projects we have coming up, and we were getting into it, and I'm like, you know what? It's just like sometimes people realize in business, they think like, oh, everyone's working toward the same goal, everyone's doing this, but in reality, you might be moving light speed because you have your goals and stuff on there, but the other people out there are going to go at their own pace, and they're not going to go as fast. On occasion, you'll find someone at a company or a contact, or hopefully your partner, your team is moving at the same pace. But the rest of it, to me, it's like it's going to feel like you're running with mud up to your knees. Like it's going to be that element of it with other people because you're trying to push them, but other people have other agendas going on. Who knows what's going on at their company and their personal life? Sure. They actually are passionate about the job they're at, or they're just doing the job, and you have to work with them and coordinate. And I think a lot of that was like, I said something different, F it, but I'm like, we'll just do it ourselves. Like you put that Thanos gif in there, like, I'm going to have to do it on my own. Like, that's what it is. It's like, that's how we've built half of this. I mean, like, Joel didn't just say like, oh, I got to get all these people to make a YouTube show. He just went and made it and did it and turned it into something. And then I've been able to build on that and turn it into something. But along the way, there's so many other people we work with, and it's like, let's hustle, let's get it going. Let's go. We want to hit this. Because we can see all these things, but it may not be on their agenda. Right. And so we got into that. And Joel's like, that's a great topic. You should hit up Pooch. And I said, let's do it. And
and here we are. And here we are. Man,
we got something done.
I got to tell you, man, like there's just so many different, so much tasty morsels within what you're talking about there. And it's any entrepreneur, I think, can really resonate. One, with the feeling, like mission number one that we always hear is like, just do it, right? Just get it done. Like, like ideas are worth nothing without execution. Like sometimes you just got to do it. But right, we've heard the saying before. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Right. And so, how do you meld those two concepts? Where, there are successful businesses where you're a solo indie entrepreneur and stuff like that, but at some point, if you're a business, you're gonna need to rely on other people, whether they're your customers, whether they're your vendors, whether they're your partner, and so it's tough because we as founders a lot of the time want to just, you know what, I'm just gonna do it myself because nobody has ever feels like they're moving at the speed that your mind is moving. Like you're inside your own head a lot of the time, right? And so reconciling those two things and just it's not clear and your ability to communicate like where you are and where you want to be and the pace that you're going is an art in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right. So David, my first question for you then is like, how do you reconcile those two? How do you like kind of start to learn like when it is right to go and just get it done yourself versus like, you know what, maybe I'm going to be better off delegating or being patient here and slowing down.
All right. Well, so I'm also, you guys know me. I said I come up with like really weird analogies, but it's like, build a vehicle that's going to take your car far, take your business far. It's like your vehicle is going like in this scope of things, build yourself a convertible. That way people can jump in and jump out really easy as you're booking it down the road. Because you're going to need to put people in at different places. I know it's super cheesy, but I'm just preparing for when I'm a dad someday and I could get my dad jokes in. But it's, it's that element of it. It's like, it's that part of it. It's that element of like, you have to, it goes back to everything. I mean, it's so cliche, but you have to have a good plan. You have to have goals. You have to have your long-term goals, your short-term goals. You have to write stuff down. All the stuff you learned in 4th grade, you have to keep doing because guess what? It works. It's like a real thing,
It works.
And so it's one of those elements of like, I think I just go. I mean, you've known me for all. I'm just like all gas, no brakes. And like,
yeah,
here we go. We're just going to keep doing stuff. But I keep things in mind where it's almost modular, where like, here's where the project's going. And then if I reach out to these people and if they can help along the way, great. And if they can't, or they come in later, I look at like, okay, how can I reconfigure that? But I think part of it is just being honest with yourself and not putting expectations on other people, especially people that you're working with.
That's tough.
It's unfair. It's unfair. It's just like if you get in an argument with someone, it's like, I can't control the way you feel about something. Like if you hate this hat, I'm sorry you hate my hat, but I can't control that.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that mentality with someone. And I think that's really a key component of business, especially when you're starting out on your own. I mean, when I created Audiojack, I was telling people like, I'm going to make a thing and there's no video and there's no music and there's no talking. It's all sound effects.
Right.
People thought I was nuts and were like, no. So I had to like work with a buddy on how to do this. I mean, Joel, actually, this is how long we've been friends with Joel. Joel built the first version of the app of Audiojack with Phone Gap, like a bazillion years ago for me.
Wow. I didn't know. I don't think I knew that. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Joel's a genius. But he was able to do that, and like, it's that element of like, okay, I'm going to have to do it on my own. But along the way, I try to find strategic partners. I try to find people and I look at like their business models. And I try to put myself in the headspace of other people because I want to look at like, okay, where are they going? What are they trying to do? Okay, how can I fit into that? And does this work for their vertical? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Also, I don't try to sell people ever on stuff like that. You make a great product and you tell people, here's where I'm going. I'm going to go do this. Do you want to come help out? Do you want to join or do you want to be there when I'm done?
Yeah.
And you're like, cool, I'm going to go. And then it's all of a sudden, it's like your friends are like, dude, where's Dave? Oh, he went to that party. Crap, man, what are we doing here? We're on the couch. Let's go,
Yeah.
And they either come or they're like, this couch is really comfy. I'll see you later, man. And that's fine.
And your point is so well taken. Like that one, you're not going to control what ultimately people are going to do, and so you're better off not stressing about that as best as you can. That is not an easy thing in practice, though. At least for me, I know I'm guilty. I think we all do, and especially when I think in the world of business and entrepreneurship. The stakes feel really high, right? Like I'm like, hey, this is my living, man. This is like important to me.
Yeah.
And it's tough when you feel like people maybe aren't respecting your time in the same way or not. But that's oftentimes on us, right? Because it's like, well, a lot of people just don't care if you do or do not do the thing. And you have to figure out who those key players are and understand what the stakes are, right? Andrew, I want to kick it over to you here for a second, and maybe you can
Sure.
share some experience in terms of your interactions with people, whether it's people that you are working with directly, like in your business, or a lot of times your vendors and your customers.
Yeah. So, before I, dive into it, I'm gonna kick it back to an author that I always recommend, Jim Collins, Good to
Oh
Great.
yeah, that's a good book.
It comes down to the question of first who, then what. Getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats of that bus to take you somewhere where you want to go. And you might not know that exact destination.
Is your bus should be a convertible, though, as I understand it. So it's like just chop the top off
sure.
that bus.
Let's do it. Let's modify that analogy a bit. Convertible
Sure.
buses.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah. So, generally speaking, when it comes down to things that I have done, in the past, in my previous startup, I had, I was faced with this, you know, predicament, if you will, where I was constantly like trying to add momentum to this flywheel, trying, to work, crazy long hours, just pushing myself to the extreme. And then also, when I would have people come in and say, hey, this is really cool, we want to help. And, they weren't able to produce at either the same level, or, they weren't as enthusiastic as I was, I kind of took that as a, oh, well, hey, that's, like, why do I want to be working with them? Like they're, like kind of David's analogy where I'm like, running through a giant pile of mud and it's like slowing me down, like screw these guys. I'm going to go do this thing myself anyways.
Right.
And it wasn't until, it was a little bit too late in some cases where I realized like, I can't do this all on my own. And so I think it's a trap that a lot of us maker entrepreneurs are going to fall into in many cases. And I still fall into it, even today, where it's like, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to do this myself because I can't make this work, or someone else isn't working for me. Something else isn't, going the way that we need it to. I'll just, get it done. And then, you basically set up essentially into a downward spiral where if you're constantly doing all of these things, you're fragmented. You're doing too many things all at once, and you need someone to help support that. Now, yes, maybe they might not be the perfect person, but it's who you have access to right now, and you have to kind of learn to, work around and manage that. And it's okay again if they're not the right person for that seat at this moment. Or I'm sorry, not for the long term, but for the moment. If they're helping you move forward, keep it going. We had some resellers like here at Gloop that our values were not aligned. And we managed and kept with it until the point where it wasn't going to work anymore. And we said, you know what? This is it. We've got to end it here, because, ultimately it just wasn't working out. It's, in business, you have to learn when to say, okay, enough is enough in some cases.
That's a tough one.
Like these people are holding you back in some case, and that's okay. It's okay to be that honest and say, it's time to move forward, time to go in a different direction.
David, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry if it's loud in the background. This machine is like going nuts right now.
It's got the bamboo going. I can hear it. Yeah.
I know it's not even on ludicrous speed. I'm currently 3D printing a full chess set with a board and cases for my niece. She's 7 and loves chess and doesn't have a chess set. So
is that the board in the background we're seeing?
What?
Are we seeing the board in the background there?
No, that's actually a poster with my.
Oh, that's a poster. Okay, all right. I got excited here. I was like, dang, that's a big board, man.
The board is downstairs with a bottle of Gloop.
Oh, look at that! I've heard of that
also
stuff.
This year, just real quick, getting into that. Sorry, let's not get off that. But Andrew, I'll tell you other Gloop stories.
No, you're fine.
For those listening to the podcast,
I made so many 3D printed presents this year, and I used Gloop for all of it.
Nice!
Isn't it the best tool for making presents? 3D printers are fantastic for making gifts, guys.
I use 3D printing world's present design, and we're gonna start selling those in the store too now, and doing different colors and stuff like that. But people flipped out over them.
Oh yeah, those things are
Nice.
fantastic. Shout out 3D Print
Anyway,
World.
sorry
Yeah.
to go off topic about this, but sorry, your question again, Pooch. I apologize.
Yeah, no, I was just, Andrew brought up some really interesting stuff about like when to identify like what's
Yeah.
right at a given moment in time. Like you work with the people that you have and the resources that you have at a moment of time, and hopefully you learn. But then sometimes you have to learn when to cut bait. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, with people or with clients, because it's different. Because as we all know, it
Mhm.
takes a lot of money to bring on an employee.
Sure.
Mhm.
And there's that element of it. And the onboarding of a vendor or a client is different in structure. So
Sure.
it comes down to the ROI element of it. And
Mhm.
real quick, yes, I got some great purples for whoever asked in the chat. Yes.
That's
But
Liz.
yeah, Liz. Oh, hey, Liz. Yeah, sorry. My chat window is really small. But yeah, for me, it really depends. Like I try to always give my employees the benefit of the doubt and the people that I work with vendors, because there's other people. So I used to manage the Roxy Theater, which is a music venue on the Sunset Strip. It's a historic venue. If you guys aren't familiar, go check it out. It's wonderful. I started running that when I was 22. I was given the keys at a young age, and they gave me
Wow.
upstairs to On the Rocks, the private club, and then I helped manage downstairs. But part of that was managing a lot of different personalities, from staff to waitresses to dealing with the head of Universal Records to all these
Wow.
other people and stuff, and dealing with all that. And sometimes you have to kind of grin and bear it. And sometimes you have to look at employees and be like, okay, how can I be creative with this person's skill set? Or if, like, I had one employee and he would never show up to work on time, and he had the worst excuses. And so I did is I started writing them all down. And I said, wow. And he showed up late one day, and I'm like, oh man, hey, wait, before you get to it, I got to tell you the story. And I had combined every single story he had ever told me about being late and put it into one story for him.
Oh my god,
And he looked at me like,
that's so
and I go,
passive
"Dude."
aggressive.
Oh, dude. He was also like 6.5 feet tall, security guard. So I had to be smart with this. And he looked at me and gave me a look. And he's like, and I said, dude, if you're late one more time, you're out. Sorry. Can't do it anymore.
That's a
And
great
it was
gift.
like-
Here's a gift of all your excuses for the year.
He was never late again, though.
Bound.
He was never late again because he knew I was calling him out on all his BS.
Wow.
And it's like, if you know it's BS, like if it's real, like you can tell when people are doing that. And so that's like an example. But I think you have to manage your mental stress, because if you're thinking about it and it's causing a problem to you, then it's affecting the same budget that would be going into hiring someone new. Like you have to look at this and bringing people in on that level, and like, how's it affecting your stress and your productivity? Yeah. And so I think it's an evaluation.
Sure.
Absolutely. And the human element, I've said this before on the pod, but I have to just repeat it because it just bears repeating, that the human element is probably the hardest part in my mind of what we do as a business, because it's so unpredictable and variable. And even the best of people that you're working with, like, time is always that X factor, because life changes for everybody, right? And they may be a perfect, great person, and then all of a sudden they suffer a loss in their family, or they go through a breakup, and now all of a sudden they're just like, they're not showing up either mentally, physically, whatever. And you have to be able to do that. And so I think that's what drives a lot of people into or away from a lot of times the business world, because it's so hard to manage that sometimes. And if you don't have the skills, and believe me, it's an ongoing, like, you kind of have to be a student of human psychology and the human condition to some extent. You have to have good communication skills. You have to have patience. You have to have the ability to figure out what it is that makes these people tick, so that you can get as much productivity or the best of them that you can.
Well,
as you can.
it's exactly. It's like what we were talking about before on the call. Sorry, I'm also loading filament.
Go about your day. It's fine.
It's just crazy. It's for my niece. She's 7.
I know. I know.
But by the way, we have to talk about this later. But I showed a 4, 5, and 7-year-old a 3D printer, and their minds.
Isn't
like,
that
they asked questions
so
I've
fun?
never thought of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it goes back to what we were saying. It's like, it's empathy. It's understanding and being empathetical in everything, because empathy is this ability to connect to people and put yourself in their position. And before you react or whatever, it's always think about it like, wow, has this person been consistent, and now there's some anomaly here? Okay, well, I need to understand that. Okay. or is it consistently like this? And then, understanding where
Right.
they're coming from and being in the moment with people, because that's what it's about. Like you said, you don't know what's going on in their life or how it's affecting them, and it all needs to connect at some point.
It really does, and you need to ask those questions and all this stuff. And there's a lot of people that would say like, oh, I shouldn't have to do that or whatever. If you listen, not everybody has management skills. So if you identify that that's a weakness of yours, maybe it's worth it for you to hire a general manager for what you're doing. I don't know. I know that. Especially when we talk about bootstrapping and we all, I think, David, you're bootstrapped, right? You didn't come from venture funding on any of your stuff, or do you have investors, or is it yours? Okay.
For Audiojack, I had it for Audiojack. I got it I bootstrapped it, and then I had a friend of mine who was consulting with me.
Okay.
And he gave us some funds for a project, but that was it. And
Okay.
that's the only money. Everything else has been through sales. That's how I started. It was like, through that element, and through 3D printing nerd. I mean, that's been just through what we created.
Organic growth, though. It's not like you guys, went out and saw. So, and I bring that in for context because obviously when that's the road you're taking, resources are limited, and so it's like you don't have the luxury of just being able to hire for whatever. And honestly, Andrew, you've been down the road of venture capital in the past too. That's not always the right way, because when you have $2 million in the bank, or in the bank, it's other people's money and stuff. Like, you are probably overly aggressively trying to hire. And doing that before you've really even formulated and understood if like that's the best allocation of resource. And unfortunately, like, that's a really, really costly. Those are costly lessons to learn a lot of the time, because you'll hire somebody on and you'll realize, oh, wow, everybody puts their best foot forward. Everybody gives the best references. Their resume is shining and stuff like that. But you don't know what you don't know about them until you start working with them. And they may be great on paper, but then you just don't click, right? So David, we talked about like identifying people that get it, right? And what it is totally different for Andrew and you and me. And like, so it's like, how do you define what the personality type that you need even is?
I think it's just experience. It's like when I was, like a great example is like producing TV shows. I have staffs of, it depends on the size of the show, but I've had staffs of 100 people and, or more. I've produced a show we were doing for Fox, and I was managing a team. I was supervising post at this point on the show, and I had a team of, I think, like 20 editors at one point on two different floors of a building, cutting and building this giant network show because it was so massive. And it's just like, okay, you just have to jump into it. It's a lot like, from what I've heard, I've never been in the military, but a lot like war or anything. Like, you get into it and you have to be able to manage those people right there in the moment, because that's who you have.
Right. These are the troops you got.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's about being like, for that, like, I would go through and like, okay, this guy is really good at these elements, but he sucks at story. Okay, great. I'm going to have him do our super teases and all these other elements. And I would shift people and kind of, I think any of this, it's an evolution. It's a constant. It's not just, okay, I have this and it's done kind of a thing. I think that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Because nothing is consistent. Everything is always fluid and changing and all that. And hi to Fotis and Britt in the chat. I see some people. Hey, Britt.
Yeah. Hey, Britt's with us. Awesome. And Fotis. Love you, Fotis. Kisses. Andrew, give us some, like, if you can, I'm gonna put Andrew on the spot here for a moment.
Yeah,
like,
put him on the spot.
Let's like, you're in charge of bringing it all home for everyone here, Andrew. Like, give some concrete tips for people that are bootstrapping, like, because what David's saying is absolutely right. It's like, it's experience that really gets you to where you need to be to understand what's working and what isn't. But in the context of hires and people, that's really expensive to hire somebody and then fire them and then find somebody new and all that stuff. So if you're bootstrapped and you don't have the resources, or maybe you're right on the verge of like, okay, I'm ready to offload this, but I want to bring that person in. So obviously we talk about planning, doing as much as you can to try to define as best as you can, but then identifying like how do you define like how much leash to give and when you know what, hey, this isn't working out. Probationary hires,
well, so I mean, there are a couple of different things, but one thing again that I would kind of go back to is defining the key roles or the key seats that you have on that bus, and for the direction that you're going. As David mentioned, things are fluid, and with experience comes this ability to kind of go with the ebbs and the flows of the changing aspects of business. So one of the things that really got me early on was I just hired, and you keep costs low. You get young inexperienced people, and you realize, like, hey, they don't have the experience to just kind of be let loose and then develop something, or understand a problem that's happening and then work to correct that problem. They had to have constant management,
Yeah.
constant direction.
Yeah.
And ideally, when you're going in a direction, it's not someone that you need to manage, because again, that's just going to take away from your time. You're
Right.
looking for someone that can multiply your efforts,
Right.
not just add to your efforts, but truly multiply them. And those are the types of
Yeah.
people that it has this for lack of a better explanation, I'll call it a little bit of like common sense problem solving, where they can kind
Which
of
is not so common,
predict
sadly.
yeah, I know. Well, where they can kind of predict some of the things that are going on. They understand the direction that the bus is traveling in. We might not know the end, the end goal, or the overall destination, but they understand the the direction and the bumps in the road. They see a pothole ahead, so you're gonna kind of have to like move out of the way, or oh, hey, could we work on this, or can we do
Yeah.
that? So I think it comes down to first defining those key roles,
Yep.
who are going to be on that bus.
Yep.
And then from there, understanding or looking for those types of people that have this capability of I guess forward thinking a little bit, and saying, oh, hey, this is what we need to do, or this is what we could do to amplify our efforts even more. And it's all about finding those right people. And
Yeah.
you'll get it wrong, and that's okay. And what happens is, when you get it wrong, sometimes you don't have to fire the person. Maybe you need to reassign their objectives. Maybe
Find their
say,
strength.
okay, hey, yeah, find their seat on that bus, because it's not the seat you had them in. And just kind of make it work. And it's okay if certain seats go unfilled for a time, understanding that you're gonna have to take up the work of that job. Like,
Yeah.
as us as like solo founders, or kind of partnership founders that are really small, we wear so many different hats, and that's we have to do that to make it work. And so each time we add to our team, hopefully we have someone else that's capable of wearing a couple other hats, where again we're talking about a multiplication of your efforts, not just an addition.
Sure.
Yeah, and it goes to like what you're saying. Like, I mean, it all goes back to the hiring process and getting to know people, asking good questions. I mean, this is for anything. I mean, out of any of the companies I've run, or anything you're doing in general, even when you're working with different vendors and talking to people, if you have a meeting and you're meeting with a marketing department, ask questions. And this, I mean, obviously comes from experience and time, but ask questions. They're going to elicit responses that are going to be triggers for you to see and be like, okay, now I know on this team that we have these three people, and number two is going to be awesome. Number one is going to be a pain in the ass, and number three will help support whatever we need. And then now you understand what you're dealing with. But it goes to also a great thing when you're interviewing people, like, because it's like, we have to do this ourselves. Like, we're just going to go, like,
yeah,
F it, we're going to make the car as we're driving. And go.
Yeah,
but
that's what it feels like.
Yeah, but part of that is also a question I always ask people and try to ask in interviews is, what are your goals? Not here, but what are your goals in life? Are you looking to have a family? Are you looking to be an entrepreneur? Are you looking to start another business? Because people try to tell you what you want in interviews when you're meeting people and stuff like that. But if you can get around these goals and trick them up a little bit so they're more honest, then at least you understand, okay, well, this person wants to do this.
Right.
And then this position will have a certain longevity inside that individual's career path, or it'll have a certain, time length. Yeah. And then you can better understand what to get out of them, because it goes back to earlier what we were talking about, putting expectations on others. Like, it's not fair to expect something out of someone who is there to work a job and do the job, and it's great, but you want all this other stuff out of them. Well, that's not fair, because you hired them to do this. They said they can do this. Well, if you want all these other things out of someone else, don't put those expectations on them, because you're going to set yourself up for failure, because you're going to ask someone to do something they're not going to be engaged with. And that's the problem.
Let me push back on you on that just for a second, just devil's advocate a little bit, because obviously there is some extent where, like, you are hiring somebody, you are paying them to do a job. It is work, and work is, by definition, is stuff that we don't always want to be doing, right? But I think your point is well taken, in that we, as the business owner are going to want to obviously get as much out of somebody as we can. We want as much value as we can get. And when you're saying like, look, when you feel yourself being frustrated, and you can correct me if I'm overstepping what you're saying here, but when you feel yourself getting frustrated, like you have to dial back and frame realistic expectations and realistic understandings of what people's capabilities are. And that just takes a little bit of time and massaging and understanding. And so obviously finding people that are asking questions on both front, you as the business owner and your people that are hopefully good people, I always say, are the ones that are asking questions and seeking clarity themselves. Right. Because you're like, hey, that's trying. That's them trying to understand, like, okay, how can I help you? And finding people that do that, you'd be surprised, guys. Like, it's not common to have people that are like actually asking good questions about trying to understand where the bus is even going. Because they don't even think of themselves as being on any bus. They're just going and punching in and punching out and doing their job.
Well, yeah, it depends if they want to be engaged with it or not. I mean, there's people I've worked with on shows and projects and things like that where it's great. They came in, they did their bit, awesome. But there's other people that hang around. They're like, hey, what about this? What about this? And it's like, okay, I can see they're engaged with what I'm doing. So let's give them some more responsibilities. Let's open them up to new opportunities. Oh, what do you want to do? And you get to know them. You know, maybe you start them at one role and it's good, but then as you get to know that person, it's like anything, like you moving them up. You know, wow, this person, he would be great as this. Let's give him some opportunity here, you know, and it's really being patient and understanding. And I know a lot of this, you know, when you're starting a business, it's like, how do I even get to that point? And it is a lot of it doing it on my own. But what I've noticed is that element of it, like on a very, very small level, is when you are starting a business, it's also those asks can be small from different people. Like you can have people help out just, you know, for maybe a couple hours on a project, or maybe just a little bit here, or bounce ideas off people. Like start small and keep in mind the scale of what you're working on. Because if you ask someone to come in and help you with something you're just starting up, and they're gonna be like, whoa, this isn't ready for my level yet. You need to make sure that too. That's another element on it. And hi, Fix 'em, dude.
You know, Carl in the chat brings up an interesting thing, and we've heard this before, talking about interns, right? And so if you're thinking about dipping your toe in on, you know, finding stuff, and in California, I can't speak for the rest of the country, but I know in California there's been a lot of changes to legislation in terms of like how you can treat interns and what you can hire them in. Like you have to, and obviously the difference between if it's a paid or unpaid, I think you can do both, but there definitely has to be documented, you know, that the majority of time is spent like training them and all that stuff. So just because they're an intern doesn't mean you get to just go send them off to do your dry cleaning and all that stuff. Like you have to be almost more committed to the teaching element of that too, which is very resource intensive. So maybe you can save a little there, but there's that can be intensive. Andrew, have you had any experience
definitely
doing the intern thing?
So we've partnered with a couple of universities in the previous startup where I think we got 3 interns and they were on stipends, where we paid the university, I think it was a nominal fee, and you know that kind of covered the
nominal
student
fee.
You know, it was whatever they charged. I can't remember. But we got them for, you know, I think it was like 6 months or 9 months. And you know, they also got college credit for it, and you know, we had to train them. It can be helpful, but I would say that at the stage where you're bringing on interns, you're more than a one-man show. You probably have 2 or 3 employees, if not more, ideally more, because you know, an intern, again, you can't just turn loose. You might be able to give them some direction and say, hey, could you figure this out? But it's not someone where you can just say, you know, here's a problem, can you solve it? You have to kind of help them through that problem.
You get what you pay for, guys. Like you really do. And as a startup, I wouldn't as appealing as it seems from like a financial perspective, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody that's just getting started, because you just really don't realize how resource intensive it is to actually train them and get useful work. Like I think there's better bang for your buck potentially elsewhere. I don't know. David, you have thoughts on that?
I've had different shows and different programs and networks that I've worked with all have different intern programs. I mean, NBC's intern and page program is one of the best in the world. NBC Universal and things like that. So I've worked with very structured But I've also worked with very unstructured as well too, on the other side of that, with other projects and companies.
Sure.
And I think with interns, it's really, I've also done a lot of work in education. So I've worked with a lot of kids at different ages. So interns, I work not better with, but I work well with, because they're there to learn. They're there to do whatever. And if you can if you have work that would benefit someone like that, like to learn, like something that's redundant over and over again, that's kind of locked in. And then if it goes sideways, you can fix it and you can shift it. That there is flexibility. It's like not super intense. Okay, oh, you messed that one up. Okay, well, let's learn from that one, because you're there to help them. They're there to learn. It's a class.
Right.
I think if you have something with inside your business that allows that to happen, it's incredible resource, because it's the whole apprenticeship element of it.
Sure.
Huge part of it. If they're passionate about this, like, there's that element. I mean, Joel and I have talked about this before on 3D Printing Nerd. He didn't want to bring in interns. I thought it'd be kind of cool to deal with editors and stuff. But one of the things that he brought up, and it's a really good point, is that you're working with a intern on generally a semester-based schedule.
Yeah.
Unless you like the summer intern program, which is way more involved. But that program, so you have someone for only a certain amount of time. That you have to ramp them up, get them efficient, and have them have something beneficial out of it that also helps your business. And so,
and then you got to do it all over again the next cycle,
every single time.
It has to be something kind of structured with it. And it was a really good point. So for 3D Printing Nerd, it doesn't make sense for us to bring on interns, and that's why we have some fantastic editors in different parts of the world or the U.S. working with us on different stuff like that. And it's like, okay, cool. Because I was thinking like, oh, we could bring on interns and in here and post and stuff, because I've seen it on a bigger scale and I thought about it, but after we talked, it didn't make sense for our structure. It'd be better to do what we've done now.
And Carl, I just want to make clear in the chat, I'm not crapping on the idea of interns. Like, I think it's been said here, like if your company has the resources, but you have to understand what David's saying, I think is spot on. You have to be able to put guardrails around it. Right, because you have to set your expectation, like this is going to be what it is, and you're going to have to accept the fact that there's going to be more turnover in that part, which is expensive, and you need curriculum developed. So it's like it's not just like somebody's coming in and immediately solving problems, like Andrew's saying. So it's a little different when you don't have the resources and a department to, like NBC's Page program, I'm sure has like a bunch of full-time people that manage that whole thing and have a lot of experience in doing the cycling and all of that stuff, which is fantastic. I love that. I think it's just setting some expectations right. Like if you're starting from square one versus if you're, an employee, a company of like 20 people, 50, whatever it would take. Andrew Smith in the chat asks about temp agencies. Do either of you guys have an experience with temp agencies?
Yeah, I actually worked at a temp agency once. So I've had the experience of that. I did that in between some TV shows, because not every show ends at the right time. And I was early on as an associate producer on a show. And I worked at a temp for it didn't last very long because my personality doesn't work in that space. But I've seen them before and they're very efficient. But it goes back to, there's something you said, and I'm echoing it in my head now because I'm thinking about this. I'm putting myself back, as a small business, as someone starting a business, the ethos of this podcast that you guys created here. The one thing that you hear all the time is everybody else telling you, oh, you should get an intern, or, oh, you should do this, or you should do this, because everyone sees these things. They're not involved in your business. They see, oh, interns are doing this. And then you hear that all the time and you deal with this. So you start to explore that and you start to second guess yourself. Think, oh, maybe I should do that. I think that's something else people need to realize too, is running your own business and just trying to do it on your own and just saying, we're going to do this on our own, is all the influence from other people that are coming in saying, oh, here's a solution. Here's a solution. It's like, okay.
And it may be a solution, but you got to try and you got to experience it. But your point is well taken. Sometimes it's just about getting that experience and you can take it for what you can. Andrew, thoughts on temps?
So with temps, it can be incredibly powerful if you have a specific job that needs to be done. Again, with some rails, that it's a redundancy sort of thing, or it's, oh, hey, we're making this widget, I need someone to fill this position, whatever it might be. I don't think there's anything wrong with temp agencies, but I wouldn't say don't rely on them. if you're going to use them for what they are. They're a temp agency for you to fill a position while you're finding for that right person. Just use it and understand, like, okay, this work needs to get done, but it's work that anyone could in theory do.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have the right person, but the pieces that you need the right person for, you're holding off on that until you get that person in.
Yeah.
I remember build something with it. You should never structure around a temp being a solution. You should try to find, so a temp is to plug a hole.
Yeah, or to find something that just would be much better suited than you spending your time stapling a bunch of sheets together or whatever it ends up being.
Yeah.
It's as somebody that was a temp in the past and stuff, I know it was oftentimes very mindless work and all that stuff, but that was defined more as I knew it was a means to an end. I just needed to go and do something simple and repetitive, get paid for it, and move on. I wasn't expecting to build other opportunities. Sometimes you get into experiences where you can get noticed and move to something else. Sometimes it's literally like, this is for a month and we need it because like this is our peak season, and then it's bye-bye. I know that as a temp, I recognize that the company, the people managing me, appreciated the fact that like they didn't need me bothering them because I had enough going on. So it was very like, okay, tell me what you need to do, what's helpful. I would do it and try not to be too disturbing. And then when I'm done, I'll go ask and stuff like that. But I know that I got a lot of appreciation out of the fact that I recognized like I wasn't needy about it.
Yeah.
But that's defined very, very differently than trying to find a partner or an actual hire. And these are all the different tools at your disposal. One of the other things I would say, just to kind of think a little bit differently, I've been moving more towards investing a lot more time in networking and doing things like we're doing here, because you're never going to get as good of ideas as like those that you get from other people that are actually doing it. And sometimes you find good partnership opportunities. Sometimes you find like, you know what, you can just hire a contractor for that. You don't need to have that employee. And honestly, when your resources are limited, you need to get as much experience as possible with different people, with different personalities, with all of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I come from the freelance world in production. I mean, we hire people for a day or for a week, and they have to be able to jive with what you're doing. So that means you as the business have to have a structure that allows these people to exist in a productive manner.
Yeah.
It's like we'll be on a shoot and Joel will be like, I just want to kind of go loose with it and do whatever with it. It's like, okay, cool, let's do that. But in order for that to happen, you have to have the structure for that to exist. And the same thing for hiring an employee.
Yep.
You have to be able to have a structure that's going to allow them to do it. Like when we were shooting at FormNext, we brought in Peter from Malta. He flew in from Malta, Germany. Yeah, amazing guy. And we're going to bring him around for a whole bunch of other stuff and things like that. But we worked with him, and let's take a step back. We flew to Malta. I never worked with any of these people. I've just been doing 6 a.m. phone calls with them to do all the pre-production.
Yep.
Everything like that. I don't speak Maltese. Ask Joe. I can do mela, and that's about it. That's my Maltese. Like whatever. But that's it. But all of a sudden I had to go there. I was dropped on an island.
Yeah.
And okay, David,
literally
there is this massive budget and this massive production. Run it with all these personalities from wherever. And it's like, that's just kind of how it is. You have to work with these freelance people, but it all comes back to the structure of what you're creating as a business, whether it's small, big, whatever. How is it going to grow? How is it going to, what verticals are going to allow it to turn into whatever? And how are you going to build that to allow people to fill it in?
But obviously you've done that a number of times with different productions and stuff like that. And the fact that you have been able to experience so many different teams has allowed you to, one, define in your head, like who gets it in terms of what works with David Tobin. And then it allows you to potentially reach out and reuse the resources that you have. So again, like finding ways to experience without having the commitment, like freelancers are fantastic for that stuff. Sometimes you're going to be misses, but that's fine, because it's like you do the project, you learn a little something, you go on to the next one, and then if you find the people you love, you hold on to them.
So we do have a question that's off subject. So with that, I want to answer, but I also want to answer Joe's question too. But yeah, with that, like with those people, like that was just it. It's like I went out there, and Peter and I, like for me as a director and an executive producer, having a director of photography that can pick up a camera, make things look gorgeous, and ask me questions. Hey, what do you think of this shot? Hey, what do you want to do this? And be collaborative. is a godsend, and it's very rare to find someone who really knows how to do that. But it's like dating. It's like anything. Like you click and you click.
Yeah.
Like the reason Joel and I have succeeded is because we get along on a level outside of that space, and we share the same mentality and the same look. And so I get out there, and all of a sudden this guy is like, "Hey, dude, what about this? What about this?" And we're like being collaborative. I remember Joel even saying, "He's like, watching you two work, you were like in your happy place." And I'm like, "Yeah, there's someone right next to me who needs to get a job done, that knows how to get the job done and wants to do it." And then all of a sudden, here we are in Germany, and we're planning other trips in other parts of the country because this person is now adding to the team. I've worked with tons of camera ops and DPs that are great at their job, but they don't jive, and you may not want to bring them back, or you want to use them for something specific.
Isn't it just the best feeling though when you find the people
Amazing.
that go your speed?
Oh my God. I mean,
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
whole, like you can look at the footage from there. I mean, you can see it was like great. And I mean, obviously you can tell, but like it was just so effortless to work with them. And there was so much hustle. I mean, we shot an insane amount of stuff. There's another one coming out in a couple of days, actually, or in a week or so. We have one last one from Malta that's really silly.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really goofy. Wait till you see, Joel.
Give a shot at answering Joe's question.
Yeah, Joe's question. So
read it out for everybody.
Questions. Yes. So I have a bunch of 3D printed violins. There is, as far as 3D printed, there isn't a program for those yet. I'm working on it with Music Forward at the moment right now and Mr. Holland's Opus. But if you want to donate and getting stuff to instruments and things to programs, if you want to help out in that area, not 3D printed violins, Mr. Holland's Opus is a fantastic charity. They do amazing work. It's named after the man, the movie, the whole thing. You ever saw that with Richard Dreyfuss? It's all based on that, and it does great work.
For those listening back really quick, Joseph Podgorski, founder of Project Red, was asking. David is a musician, has quite a hobby as a musician, but he has a bunch of 3D printed violins, and Joseph was asking. He noticed his violin collection and wanted to know if there was a good organization that provides a means to give these away to kids that are in need, that are into music. Yeah, we're an audio medium.
Audio mode, yeah. So definitely.
No.
And Joe, if you want to hit me up, I can always get you some more information on that, because I am actively working on a program in that space. So
Awesome.
So I know we're running a little bit long, David. I know, and I want to let you. I know you've got a ton to do, so we'll let you get back to it. But if you've got a couple more minutes, we can pivot. I've got one more thing, because we talked a lot about hires. We've talked about finding people that work well with you within here, but we really haven't focused on. And maybe there's a lot of overlap here, but focusing on the vendor side, or when you're. And I know you say you don't like to sell, but let's be honest, we're always kind of selling in some manner, whether or not you want to use that word or not. When you're working with vendors, when you're asking other people to join you as a customer, like for example, you had to do an immense amount of work to get donations for the stream you referenced at the top of the podcast, right? And so when you're trying to get people involved in a project, right, and you're asking them either to donate or to pay you guys, hey, look, you're pitching stuff all the time, right? You're pitching stuff all the time. How do you what are some tips and tricks you have for getting people on your side and getting them to move at your speed, and understanding there is a time frame to it, and all the things that go along with that?
I think, well, like using the live stream as the charity event that we just did for Seattle Children's on 3D Printing Nerd, that whole thing that we did, our end of the year live stream where we donated money to them. A lot of that is there's a whole bunch of people that didn't get back to me in time. Yeah. And part of that is I should have started this like months and months ago, but life crazy, we're starting now. I'm actually working with some people here already.
Yeah.
Because I saw there was so much interest, I'm taking advantage of that now.
Yeah.
But I think you are selling. I look at it like this is going to sound, the acronym like ABC. It's not always be closing. It's not always be selling. It's always be closing.
Right.
Always be, closing, and that's that mentality of it. And for me, it's like, I'm going to, like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go do this really cool thing here. And if you want to come play with us, here's what we're doing. And if you don't, that's fine. I totally get it. And I think it's getting to a point in yourself where you're okay with someone saying no. And it's like, I use the dating analogy a lot of times. It's like, if you don't, also a mantra I live by is don't ask, don't get. Like if I, whatever, like I've definitely thrown out numbers and project ideas to people that made like just crazy crazy stuff. And they've said yes. But there's no way if I had never asked that, so it's that element of it. When
You miss
when you're
100% of the goals you don't take a shot on, right? What was that the
yeah,
famous
exactly.
Gretzky saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Michael Scott.
Yeah,
Michael Scott.
Yeah, but I think that's it. I mean, it's like when you're working with it and you're trying to get people to come along and you're trying to work on projects, there's people I've messaged and you just don't get. We were talking about this before. Like I do a lot of follow-ups. I think that's we talked about this a bit on the call yesterday. A bit about that. That is so core to everything. Is I make a sheet, and I used to do this when I was starting Audiojack. I would go to conferences. I'd make a sign-up sheet, and I tell everyone this. Like if you're at a conference, if you're at an event, get MailChimp's iPad app that creates an automatic list for you, or have a piece of paper and a pen at your booth and leave it there. Make sure it's emails and then follow up after the event with everyone, and then see who comes back.
You told me that at IRF like 2 or 3 years ago, and it's a great tip. It's a great tip.
It will make you so much happier because you'll have all this information. It allows you to go talk to other people. Right. Especially if you're like, oh, hey, go sign up. I'll get with you later or whatever. But then once you have this data, or once you're dealing with a company that you finally got a connection with, send emails consistently, put it in your calendars, have a chart and be like, okay, I followed up this day, a month later, here. And there's people that I have, after a bit, I'll just stop reaching out to them. And there's other people that I will harass and hit every one. I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. You're either going to say yes, or you're just going to keep ignoring my emails for the next 50 years.
Yeah.
And I've had people like, okay, we need to talk. You've been emailing me enough. Let's figure this out. People say,
Tenacity.
oh my God, I forgot your email. I'm sorry. It's been like 3 months. Let's get back in touch. I'm so sorry. Thank you for sending me a follow-up. Because just like you said at the beginning, people have lives. We don't know what's going on with their kids at home, with them, this, that, whatever. Something could get caught in spam. There could be a new filter, a new mandate. There's so many unknowns. So you have to be this consistent business. Like we all say we wear different hats. Yep. But I would literally start a day and be like, I am in sales mode today and I am just doing this. Even all these other things that are happening, I am the salesperson today. The salesperson doesn't deal with leads. Like he deals with this.
Yeah.
So
the quality leads, the Glengarry leads. Yeah. You want the good stuff. Dude, it's so funny because it sounds like one of those small little things, like follow up, right? Like duh, everybody, but it is so crucial to the process. And I think I think a lot of people, especially makers, don't feel like they're particularly good salespeople, right? And selling is what is going to make you successful. Like without selling, and I know you don't like the term selling, but it's like we need customers, we need revenue in order to exist. And I think the biggest failing, if I were to look at, just in my experience, and you can disagree with me in the chat if you want, but the biggest reason that most companies don't succeed is because they're so focused on developing product and doing awesome stuff, and they get sucked into the if I build it they will come stuff, and that doesn't work. You have to sell, you have to follow up, like you have to build an audience, and those things are not looked at, and we tend to avoid the things that we do not enjoy doing. And before you know it, you're coming up with all these excuses. Oh, I had competitors. I had all. No, it doesn't matter. People have competitors all the time. If you're not consistently getting in front of people and asking the question, taking the shots, following up, you're not gonna make it. I don't know. Is that fair, guys?
I say that's perfectly fair.
I think so. I think also finding a way to gamify it, like looking at your list of things you have to do, and I say I don't like sales and stuff. By the way, you're welcome, Fotis. I see you're out there. You're welcome. But the element of it is, it's like I know I don't like using sale. I hate selling myself to selling something to someone. So what I started doing is I started reconfiguring it in a different perspective. You're still selling, but it's like I'm creating a collaborative connection, or I want to show them an update. I want to do this element of it, and you're presenting stuff to them. You are selling. You're always selling because you're always trying to get revenue, because revenue lets you do your thing.
Yes.
But I think that element, like you see a lot of makers, that's the other thing too. It's really interesting is being in Hollywood, in LA, you have 5 million people in the city, and half of them are in the creative industry. But you're also asking these people who are geniuses, like phenomenal musicians, to also be business people. And you're asking people to do this. And in the maker space, it's the same. Like I've met so many wonderful engineers and artists and scientists,
Terrible business people
starting companies, and they're like, "Oh, I have to get here," and it's like that's not
Yeah.
my skill set. It's like, okay, you don't have to be a salesman in a three-piece suit, but think about how you can get people excited about what you're doing, because that will turn into sales. You don't have to be a salesman, salesperson.
Right. Yeah. Not a businessman. I'm a businessman.
Yeah.
You said it best at the top of the show. I think you're absolutely right. You can call it what you want. It's some form. We're always selling ourselves, right? And but the way you framed it, where you're like, look, I'm going on this journey, and you can get on board if you want, because this is where we're going, and it's going to happen. And you have proven a track record of time of execution, right? And the more that you prove that you can execute, the more people are going to want to come along with you. That is the number one way to sell, to prove you can get it done. And that takes some reputation, that takes some time, that takes some experience. But when you tell the story that way, you're absolutely right. You're not selling. You're like, this is what we're doing, and you want to be part of this party, man. Like you want to be in on this.
Well, that's exactly it. What you're doing is like, it also depends. Like, even if like someone says it's great if you have a product, if you don't have a product yet, but what you're doing is now let's flip it on the reverse. Now put yourself in the headspace of these other people, which goes back to empathy, understanding what your clients are looking for, where they're at. Also paying attention is really boring, but paying attention to like PBS, NPR news, it's great, especially like Marketplace on NPR, and seeing where the markets are, where people are at, because then you'll understand, oh, they work at this company, they're dealing with this stress coming in.
Yeah.
Like I had a friend hit me up. He's like, dude, I want to get a job at NBC. I heard they're hiring. I'm like, they just did a bunch of layoffs. Now's not the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's like understanding that. But what you're doing is you're mitigating risk for the people that are buying from you. You want to give them confidence, so they look at this and go, whoa, wait a minute. You know what? If I engage with this person, it's making my life easier.
You're solving a problem. We talk about this all the time. Like, if you're solving a problem for people, you know, whether it's you know what, you're saving them some time because they don't have to make their own. You know, a lot of times that's the then that you're saving them money. Like really, like your ability to sell is your ability to take a problem off of somebody's plate or save them money or time doing something out, time which eventually is, you know, money. And so I want to talk about something from my, like, people ask me all the time, like, oh, you know, I don't do traditional advertising. I don't pay for Google ads or Facebook ads or all that stuff.
Same here.
And I know a lot of people, I'm not saying that can't be a successful revenue stream, but when you want lasting customers and impressions and stuff like that, the word of mouth stuff, your stuff out. So I always love getting those photos from people on social media or emailed to me where they're like, this is my rep box setup and it's cool. And I can't tell you how much repeat business has come from like, hey, I saw your box on Joel's wall, or I saw it on David's wall, or I saw it, just having it in the background and letting people ask the question themselves. Like, what is that, right? They don't want to be sold to. They want to go through that exploration and understanding like, hey, that might be good for me. And so really the mission becomes like just getting in front of people. I say, like, you don't have a sales problem, you have an awareness problem.
Sure.
You need there is so much noise in the world today. You need to be able to shout above the noise.
Well, that's exactly it. Like with Audiojack, like I don't try to sell it to anyone. I just have them listen to one. Like, go download the app.
It sells itself, right?
After they're done, they're like, oh my God. And then
I didn't even know about this, right? How many people tell you they didn't even know?
Yeah, well, what I actually did. So speaking of like Facebook ads, I mean, this might be a conversation for another time, but like using the ad stuff out there, if you do it in a creative way, it can be incredibly beneficial. I got my first sales from Audiojack after I had the website up. This is a long time ago, and I was still doing beta testing because I knew there was no language barrier. I did ads in European small cities in Europe where I had no competition.
Yeah.
Right. No one else out there. It was obscure. And just to get people buying and testing and putting it out there.
Yeah.
And then I cultivated that. And then I took that and I saw what they were engaging with. And then I used that for bigger campaigns. Yeah. I created beta in markets and that was something I did all on my own. It cost like nothing. It was a couple bucks for some ads, and you can see, you know,
the targeting tools I hear that Facebook has, and I'm not crapping on that.
It was before Cambridge Analytica. Very different now.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm not saying that advertising in that manner is not necessarily beneficial. I'm just saying that if you're having to pick and choose with limited resources,
I
and how
agree
you're
with you
going to do
100%.
it,
No, your product needs to stand on its own. And what you said, like actual awareness and being out there in the wild and people doing it. Like I can go to an event with, Audiojack or a show. I mean, that's why people advertise in LA, New York, Atlanta, Chicago for TV shows and not like, Omaha, Nebraska or places, because the people there are, because like you're going to pay X amount of money, but the people there are going to tell other people about it.
Right.
And that's how you get the really good sales. Like me going like, dude, I've been using Gloop nonstop over here and telling my other friends about it because it's
word of mouth is the best
because
advertising.
you're looking at me right now.
Yeah.
But it's
you're hypnotizing.
It's a product that gets the job done, and it's like, oh, here it is, and now it's a part of my world. People see it in photos and pictures and stuff,
and it smells great, guys. It smells great.
Yes. Please don't tell people to smell it, Pooch.
Oh my god.
Listen,
but I agree with you. I agree about that element. I mean, it's really, it really with anything, like, especially for makers, it's like, it sucks. I know it's really tough. Like, I'm completely honest, like, just heart to heart, it is so tough starting a business after you're like a phenomenal designer, you're a beautiful artist, you're an amazing scientist.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it takes decades to be that good at what you do. And that is unbelievable. And now it's like, I got to do what?
Right.
I got to go learn how to do business. I got to do ad revs. I got to do this. Oh my God, it's tough, but it's like, break it up, make it smaller, and do those things out there. And,
well, that's a fantastic point, because what's the common saying, Malcolm Gladwell, the 10,000 hours to perfect something or whatever. So you think about how much you've invested in your maker skills over the time, right? And you have to do the same thing, because your business skills is a whole different set of skills. Just because you have this talent doesn't mean you're going to be discovered immediately. Like, you have to be able to sell yourself, get yourself in front of your people, and that takes time and experience. You have to put in your 10,000 business hours on top of your 10,000 professional hours and whatever your craft is. That is so tough.
don't give up.
You have to keep marching. I'm glad you said that. That segues into what I'd like to just talk about as my last piece, which I think will be a good thing for perhaps our next episode, and then we'll call it. Today on Twitter, just this morning, I saw an article Arvid put out. Arvid, I think it's Crawl. Forgive me if I don't mention that. All right, but it said literally like, I give up. I've tried, and it was a hard read. It resonated with me deeply, because I think we can all vouch for having moments as entrepreneurs where we're just like wanted to throw our hands up, like, I give up, and yet we have to keep marching forward. And the article said, like, I tried 3 times. I wasn't good. I don't know all the details. I wish I had more details on like what this person actually tried. But I think it was great that we were seeing some stuff that wasn't necessarily through the rose-colored lenses that we often see with social media, right? Oh, we're doing awesome, and here's our revenue, and da 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 da. Right? Like, the struggle is real, and the I don't know, the amount of effort that you have to continuously put in, and times you have to get knocked down and all that stuff, guys, is just it's a lot more than I think a lot of people realize. And we talked at the beginning about like the cutting bait thing, and like, I know it's not really in the entrepreneurial spirit to talk about when it's time to give up. I don't think give up is right. I think it's pivot, right?
Well, I think, I mean, I read that article, and that guy was institutionalized. He went through a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, there was some mental health issues.
There's a lot of other stuff going on.
Sure.
But like, I don't know why this just popped in my head, but I'm going to say it anyway. So I don't know if you watched the show Silicon Valley.
Oh yeah, I love it. Okay, I want more of it.
I was at a point kind of mirroring them with Audiojack, and I actually had anxiety from watching the show, and I had because it was so real. Because also all the people in the show are also like legit tech people.
Yeah.
And I couldn't watch it, but then I remember watching the beginning of the second season, and there was a scene where he hopped in as like the fake Uber driver to take that investor and like to pitch him. And at the end of it, the guy goes, "You did what?" And he's like, "Well, we're trying to do this and get this." And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. Is it hard becoming a billionaire?"
Yeah.
Like that line resonates in my head. It's like, think about that sentence.
Yeah.
Billionaire.
Yeah.
Millionaire. Was it hard?
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Very hard. It's like anything. Like, you want to be in the NFL? Sure. Like, you can talk crap about Tom Brady, but you know what? That dude is like a legend. He has dedicated his life to do that. And there's only one of him at that level, like anything, like if you want to do that, it is not easy. It is hard. You are going to get beat up along the way. It is part of it. You have to put parameters in your own life that to pull back on, to find those healthy spots on it, find those things, is it music? Is it exercise? Is it, is it reading? Is it taking a nap? Is it huffing gloop? I don't know.
I hope not.
Kidding. By the way, for anyone listening, do not ever 3D gloop. Do not do that. It is not bad. It's horrible. Don't do that.
One of the best quotes I ever got from the closest thing to a mentor I have here was saying, like, as a business person, as an entrepreneur, you have to learn to love the taste of your own blood, because you are literally going to get punched in the mouth like a million times, and you have to just keep getting back up again. And it is that moment, the darkest before the dawn, all that, like the moments that you say like this is hopeless is like right before you have your next breakthrough. So a little taste perhaps of things to come, guys, a little teaser for something in the new year. I would like to dig in on that topic more, because it's not always rainbows and butterflies and unicorns and all that good stuff. But there's lessons to learn in the failure as well. And I think that we really need to be real and to dig in on a little bit more of that. So tune in a future episode for more.
Let's do it
on that.
Yeah, there's a lot there, especially in the mental health space, man.
Listen, man, I got to thank you, one, for staying on extra long with us, and two, it's always a pleasure, man. I could talk with you all day on any number of topics. But I wish you a happy Hanukkah, a happy holidays, whatever holiday you're celebrating, guys. I hope that you have a safe and fun and enjoyable. Take some time for yourself. Get relaxed. Get your head right. Whatever you need. And we will see you in 2023 for more Maker That Money. Until then, I am Pooch from Repkord. Andrew?
I'm Andrew from 3D Gloop.
David.
Oh, hi. I'm David from Audiojack and 3D Printing Nerd. Thanks for having me on. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Happy holidays to all. Take care, guys.
See ya.